Hey everyone, my name is John Hart with the Art Institute of San Antonio and Student Smokehouse. I know a lot of people are stuck inside right now, but we wanted to go walk through our new smoker, the YS 640. Really proud of this, and just starting to get the hang of it, just starting to learn it. So I hope you guys all enjoy this video. We're going to go through a brisket, and we are going to trim it up, apply some rub, throw it on the smoker, and we're going to find out together how this YS 640 stacks up against all the other smokers out there. It is a pellet smoker, capable of going 350 plus, I think 450, so you can do direct grilling, you can do smoking. We're going to try it out for jerky at a low temperature. We're really excited about adding this to our school, adding this to our student smokehouse, and I hope you guys all enjoy this. We get to trimming up this brisket and see what it's all about. All right, one of the most important things to think about when you're trimming a brisket is having sharp knives. I have a couple knives right here. Most of them are pretty standard. There's nothing really special about these knives. They're just supposed to be kept sharp. We have a select brisket in front of us, and I'm just going to go through a standard trim on what we do and what we're looking for as far as getting some of the excessive fat off of this brisket. Briskets, I see a lot of people who are really intimidated by a brisket, but they're really not anything to be scared about. So you have two parts of the brisket. You have the flat right here, and you have the point right here. The unique thing about the brisket is the grain is going in two different directions. So you can see a little bit here how this point, the grain of the muscle is going in this direction, whereas we flip over, we can see that the grain in the flat is going this direction. So we have grain going this direction and we have grain going this direction. So when you trim this up to serve, you're going to have the grain going in different directions. Not much you can do about that unless you trim it after the fact, after it's been cooked. But we'll just go through a normal trim, and I'm looking to take off all the heavy fat that's not going to render down. When you see these large pieces of fat and you can tell that they're very tough, those aren't going to trim out. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to follow the line of the meat, and I'm just going to trim that out. And I'm just feeling for how tough the fat is, and I'm letting that guide where I trim. This is another section of fat that lies in between the point and the flat, and very tough, and it's not going to render, it's not going to cook down, and it's also going to get in the way of the smoke getting to the meat, so we're going to get rid of that as well. Trying to do this where you can see it on the camera and not, I would normally have this in a different position, but so you can see now we're getting in close to the meat. A little bit of tough area right here. Might just wedge that out a little bit more. So again, that kind of shows you the separation between the flat and the point. And now we want to take off a little bit of this top fat. And what I'm shooting for here is to just kind of go down to about 1/4 of an inch of fat. Fat is flavor, but if you're taking a bite and it's all fat, it might not be what you're looking for. So just slowly take our time and trim down. All right, so I've got the top trimmed out where I like it, and a lot of this is going by feel. I'm kind of feeling across the top of the brisket, and I'm looking for any noticeably hard spots where that's telling me the fat is a little too thick. I've got down to about 1/4 inch across the whole top. Now I'm going to flip it over. We're going to look at the bottom of the flat, and I'll show you what I'm looking for here. So right now I can see a little bit of extra fat on the point. I'm just going to trim a little bit of that off. And now I'm looking to remove some of the excess on the flat. I'm just going to, the silver skin, and a lot of this is not going to render out very well, so a slight trim on that. This is not 100% necessary, but it kind of shows attention to detail, and I think it produces a better product in my opinion. Another thing with trimming briskets, if you can trim them while they're pretty cold, that's going to help. As they start to warm up, they just become a little bit more pliable. So I'm just trying to take off as little actual meat as possible. Slide my knife underneath that silver skin, and then draw up a little bit to just try to take off as little actual meat. I'll go ahead and continue to do this a little bit, and we'll be back in a minute. Hart and Andy Husbands. That's it. Wicked Goo Barbecue. But not all spices are created equal. If you just want garlic, you're going to have to choose what size garlic you want. Same with pepper. You could go with garlic powder. Most people have that in their house, but it's very, very fine, and it's probably a little bit overkill. You move up to the minced garlic dehydrated, and actually we're going to be using that, and we also have garlic flake. So this is going to be our choice, kind of because of the texture of it. We want a little bit of the texture to carry through after the brisket's been cooked. Then we have ground black pepper, kind of a typical table grind that you find in your shaker. Then we move up to actual shaker grind. It's a little bit thicker, but I'm going to choose a coarse grind black pepper, just because, again, it's going to have some texture on the brisket after it's cooked. So we're going to choose the coarse black and the minced garlic dehydrated. We've actually got it mixed up, and it's a pretty simple mix. It's 50-50 between a kosher salt, the coarse grind black pepper, and we also have a little bit of ground cayenne pepper. So salt, pepper, minced garlic, the cayenne pepper, and we're going to choose to bind it somehow. You could probably put it on here. It'll probably stick, but we want to give it a little bit more something to stick to. Now you can choose a variety of binders. You can choose Worcestershire sauce. You can choose different mustards. We're going to go with the standard yellow mustard. It really does not add any flavor to the brisket, but it does give a great binding agent. So when we add this rub, it's going to stick and it's going to stay. So let's just slather on a little bit of mustard, yellow mustard. Again, it really doesn't add any flavor. If it doesn't add flavor, why do you do it? Well, because the rub sticks to it really well. I'm not an expert, but I think the vinegar might play a part in helping tenderize. This is a select brisket. Doesn't have a lot of internal fat. So maybe a little bit of vinegar in the mustard might help our end product in tenderness. Leave that up to the experts. There's a lot of controversy on that fact. So now we have the mustard down, and that's going to act as our binder. We're going to add the rub. And if you ever wonder why brisket at a barbecue restaurant is so expensive, that's the amount of fat that we pulled off this one brisket. So now I am laying down the rub, being fairly generous. With the trimming, we created a lot of nooks and crannies. Make sure you get that rub down in there really well. So there we have it. Salt, pepper, garlic, and a little bit of cayenne. And we're going to get that onto the smoker. Our brisket's going in the smoker. We're going to put one on the top rack. We'll put another one down below. And from what I've learned on these pellet smokers is that you want to have the fat side down. A lot of times people debate on fat side up or fat side down, but on these smokers I've come to understand that fat side down is the way to go. I'm sticking the probe. This has a probe that goes into the fireboard and it keeps track of the internal temperature of my brisket. So I'm putting that probe in the fattest part of the brisket. And then when we have the next brisket in there, we'll put the other probe in. And this is great because it talks to your app on your phone. You're able to keep track of the temperature of the brisket, the temperature of the smoker, and I think it's a great feature to help you regulate the heat of your smoker and know when to wrap your brisket. the second brisket's going on, and in the spirit of learning, we are the student smokehouse after all, we are going to put the second one in, and we're going to put it in fat side up. So we have one on top, fat side down. The bottom one is going to be fat side up. Again, the probe is going to go into the thickest part, which is the point, and we'll be monitoring that on the control panel on the Yoder YS640, and we'll be monitoring that on the phone app. These are our first full tube briskets on the Yoder YS640. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean up our area, and we'll come back tomorrow and we'll see what the final product is. We're not sure how long these are going to take, but we're excited to try them out, and we'll check with you on tomorrow's episode to see what the final result was. Hope to see you there. Thanks. Alright, welcome back everybody. Right now the briskets have been in the smoker for about 7 hours now. We're going to pull them out, we're going to wrap them, we're going to stick them back on and let them go the rest of the night. Now I do have 2 ways we're going to wrap them, and that's just because we want to, again, test different ways of doing this. We're going to wrap one in foil, and we're going to wrap the other in butcher paper. So hang with me, we'll get these things out and we'll get them wrapped and we'll get them back in the smoker, and we'll come back tomorrow and see how they turned out. Back next day, the briskets have been in for approximately 22 and a half hours. We wrapped them up last night at about 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. They went in at about 10:51 yesterday morning. So they got wrapped about 5 o'clock last night. They went overnight. We had it set on a program with the fireboard. That worked out perfectly. That was our first time trying an overnight cook. So we're excited to get in here, take a look and see what they look like, and get them off the pit. You might remember we had one wrapped in foil, one wrapped in butcher paper, little probes. Which one do we want to open first?
Let's do the one in the foil.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is falling apart. All right.
And Chef Jeff, just for reference, which one was the one we did fat side up and which one was fat side down?
So fat side up was the foil, and after I wrapped them, they both went fat side up. But when we started out the cook, this one was fat side up.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So just so you can see a little bit, there's a little bit more juice left over in that one. This paper absorbed a little bit of juice, but I'm excited. I'm going to see what these things look like on the inside. Get in here. Another thing you can do, you separate the point and the flat. We can take this point, trim it up, and make burn ends out of that. That'll be amazing. Can't help myself. That's real good. So again, our grain is going this way. That's why we're cutting it perpendicular to the grain. And as this was sitting here, this grain was going this way on the flat, and now the grain on the point is going this way. So if we pull this apart, make it cut like this, we're going to go this way on these cuts.
Chef, can you show us the underside of the flat?
The underside of the flat.
Yeah.
Or the point?
Yeah, the point and the flat. Just to take a look real quick. Looks beautiful.
It's just falling apart. That's awesome. All right, now we're gonna slice into the next one, the one we had wrapped in butcher paper. And this one also was started fat side down.
Falling apart.
Falling apart. Do a 1/4 inch slice and see if we can get it. Oh, it wants to keep on going.
Let's see what the point looks like.
Usually if you just find that fat seam, and you remember when we were trimming, there was a little bit of a seam on either side, you can just tell where it was. So let's pull this one off to the side. Left a little bit there.
Nice and juicy.
Might cube the rest of these, make some burnt ends. We'll put those back on the smoker and try those out as well. Be right back in a second and try these and test them side by side. So now we're going to do a little unofficial taste test. Foil wrapped, fat side up. Butcher paper wrap, fat side down. They were both finished on the top rack of the Yoder YS 640. So let's dig in. I don't know what I want to try first. Flat?
Try the flat on that one as well. It's got a really nice smoke ring on the outside. So this one, nice smoke ring here. Really tender, falls apart. Nice spice on the outside. Just try the flat on this one.
Okay. First, I knew you were going to pick that piece.
Both of them are really good. Really, I'm having a hard time distinguishing whether fat side up or fat side down did any difference.
Or the foil versus butcher paper.
Right? Both of them excellent. I'm going to try the point on this one. Falling apart. Looks really good. I think the Yoder smoker did a great job. Nice running program on it. Beautiful looking briskets. We're going to make some burnt ends out of the other pieces, so that'll be some of the pictures you see at the end of the video of the burnt ends. So, try the point on the one from the paper only. Really good.
Oh my gosh. I think the internal fat on the foil wrap is a little bit more tender on the point. And that's probably due to the fact that it was partially steaming inside the foil. It was much less forgiving than the paper. The paper can breathe. A little bit more smoke can get in there, but both taste excellent.
They're falling apart as you touch them, as you cut them. They're just falling apart beautifully.
Yeah, both of them are excellent.
So for our first try, pretty good. We think that it was about 17 hours of actual cook time, and we think that it was on hold for about 6 or 7 hours. You know, we weren't here overnight whenever it went into hold, so we don't know exact time that it went into the hold mode. But these are absolutely beautiful. They came out wonderful. If you like a little bit of spice in your brisket, the rub that Chef Hart made for it was great. Sitting here right now, it'd be a shame to put barbecue sauce on something that tastes this good.
I wouldn't do it. You get a little bit more of the bark on the one that was wrapped in the butcher paper. Right?
So this one has a lot of the bark on it, on the outside, a little bit of the smoke ring.
And no, they don't taste like mustard.
Nope. And it's a good thing because I don't like golden mustard at all, but I will use it on briskets. Okay, chef, so you cut up the point here into big chunks. What are we about to do with it?
So we're about to put this back on the pit for about an hour, and we're just gonna put smoke around all of the cuts. Since it was in the smoker as a full brisket, it only had smoke on one side. So as a burn in, they usually take the point, which is normally called the fatty side, and they throw that, cut it into chunks and throw that back on the pit for a little bit to get smoke around each individual piece. We're gonna do that now and throw it in the smoker and let that go for probably another hour.
Fantastic.
All right, welcome back. Final step. We cubed up the point on the brisket, threw it back on the smoker. You can see, we got some pictures on there as well, how much extra color we got on these briskets, the burn-ins.
Deep colorization right there, deep picture inside. We've got all kinds of different flavor profiles. You can still see the fat inside. It's got that really deep in there. So it was about an extra hour inside of the Yoder smoker. Great job.
Oh my God.